The massive alien ship hung above New York like a shimmering crystal, its pearly surface reflecting the morning sun. In the United Nations conference room, Captain James Miller straightened his uniform for the 10th time. After 20 years in the Earth Defense Force, he never thought he'd be humanity's military representative to an advanced alien civilization. The doors slid open. 3 tall, blue-skinned aliens glided into the room. Their silvery robes sparkled with embedded lights, and each carried what looked like glowing rods at their hips. Ambassador Gray, their leader, stood nearly 8 feet tall and looked down at the assembled humans with 4 golden eyes. "We welcome Earth to the greater galactic community," Gray announced through his translator. His voice carried a musical tone that made the humans lean forward. "As is customary, we must assess your military capabilities to determine your placement in the Council hierarchy." Miller stepped forward, activating the holographic display. "We'll be happy to demonstrate Earth's defensive capabilities," he said, bringing up images of Earth's most advanced weapons. "Our primary military force relies on kinetic weapons, from personal firearms to railguns." The aliens exchanged looks. Then, to everyone's surprise, they laughed. The sound was like tinkling crystal, but the mockery was clear. "Projectile weapons." Gray's translator couldn't hide his amusement. "You propel small pieces of metal with explosives and magnetic fields." He turned to his companions, who were still chuckling. "We haven't seen such primitive technology in 10,000 years." Miller felt his face grow hot, but kept his composure. "Our weapons are highly effective." "Effective?" Gray interrupted. "Let me show you true weapons." He raised his glowing rod. With a soft hum, it projected a beam of pure energy that formed a floating sphere of light. "This personal defense weapon can disintegrate targets at molecular level. It passes through any physical barrier and can be adjusted for stunning or elimination." The other council members activated their weapons too, filling the room with ghostly light. "Our ships carry scaled-up versions," one of them added. "Your metal projectiles would never reach us through our energy shields." General Watson, standing beside Miller, spoke up. "With all due respect, different approaches to warfare." "There is no different approach," Gray cut in. "There is only evolution. You still throw rocks while we command the fundamental forces of the universe." He turned to address the whole room. "The Council requires all member races to adopt standardized energy weapons. Your current arsenal must be decommissioned." Miller saw the UN Secretary General shift uncomfortably. "That's a significant demand," she said. "Our entire defense structure is obsolete," Gray finished. "We will provide you with basic energy weapons. In time, you will thank us for lifting you from the Stone Age of warfare." The meeting continued for another hour, but the tone had been set. The aliens demonstrated more of their technology, each display accompanied by barely concealed disdain for Earth's military. As the delegation left, Miller stayed behind with General Watson. They waited until the room was empty before speaking. "They don't understand," Miller said quietly, looking out the window at the alien ship. "Every species they've met followed the same technological path. They've never encountered a different solution." Watson nodded, his weathered face thoughtful. "Did you notice? They rely completely on their energy shields, no physical armor at all. And their ships." Miller pulled up an image on his tablet. "Look at the hull. Beautiful, but no impact protection. They've forgotten about kinetic energy entirely." "Should we tell them?" Watson asked with a slight smile. Miller thought about the countless hours of weapons testing he'd overseen, about how a simple steel ball bearing, accelerated to sufficient speed, could punch through energy fields, about the basic physics that the aliens have forgotten in their rush to master exotic energy weapons. "No," he said finally. "Let them think we're primitive, but get me everything we have on their shield technology. And contact the testing range in Nevada." "What are you thinking?" Miller's eyes narrowed as he watched the alien ship shimmer in the sunlight. "I'm thinking it's time to arrange a demonstration of our own. Let's see how their fancy shields hold up against what they call throwing rocks." As they left the room, neither man spoke about the obvious flaw in the Council's logic. After all, humanity had learned long ago. It wasn't about how advanced your weapon was. It was about whether it could do the job. And sometimes, the simplest solutions worked best. 3 days after the first meeting, the Earth's military leaders gathered in the underground bunker of the Pentagon. The mood was tense as Major Tom Wilson stood before the digital screen, showing images of the Council's massive fleet hovering above major cities worldwide. "They're not just suggesting we disarm," Wilson said, pointing to the latest Council message. "They're demanding it. We have 30 Earth days to destroy all kinetic weapons, from pistols to orbital defense platforms." The room erupted in angry mutters. General Baker slammed his fist on the table. "This is nothing short of military blackmail." Wilson nodded, changing the display to show the Council's trade routes. "They're threatening complete isolation. No trade, no cultural exchange, no access to their faster-than-light travel technology. They'll turn Earth into a galactic backwater unless we comply." "And if we refuse openly?" asked Admiral Jones, her gray hair reflecting the screen's blue light. "Their message was clear," Wilson replied, bringing up the translator's exact words. "Any race that refuses to follow Council weapon protocols is considered a threat to galactic peace. They've eliminated threats before." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implied threat. Earth's weapons might be primitive, but the Council's ships could glass a planet's surface from orbit. Captain Miller, fresh from his encounter with Ambassador Gray, raised his hand. "I have something to show you." He connected his tablet to the main screen. "These are scans we took of their ships during the demonstration." The images showed the crystal-like alien vessels in detail. Miller zoomed in on specific sections. "Look at their hull structure. It's designed to channel energy weapons around the ship." But he highlighted several areas. "There's minimal physical protection. They're completely dependent on their energy shields." "And?" General Baker asked, leaning forward. "And we've been running tests." Miller played a video from the Nevada facility. It showed a simple steel ball, accelerated by a magnetic launcher, passing straight through an energy shield they'd copied from Council specifications. The ball punched through a metal plate behind it like it was paper. "Their shields are tuned to stop energy weapons and deflect radiation," Miller explained. "They literally don't register simple kinetic projectiles as threats. It's like they forgot that Newton's laws still apply." Admiral Jones stood up. "So what you're saying is—" "I'm saying we have an advantage they don't know about," Miller finished. "But we need time. Time to test, to confirm, and to prepare." Wilson took over again. "That's why I propose Operation Paper Tiger. On the surface, we appear to comply. We make a show of dismantling our obvious weapons. Let their sensors detect the destruction of our larger installations." He brought up a new set of plans. "Meanwhile, we move our real weapons underground, convert old mines, bunkers, and submarine pens into hidden arsenals. The Council's scans can't penetrate deep enough to detect them." "And our space defenses?" someone asked. "We appear to replace them with Council-approved energy weapons," Wilson said with a slight smile. "But we keep our kinetic kill vehicles hidden in defunct satellites and space debris, right under their noses." The room was quiet as everyone considered the risks. If they were wrong, if the Council discovered their deception, Earth would face the wrath of a galactic civilization. But if they were right— "There's something else," Miller added softly. "During the demonstration, I noticed their personal shields flicker when they walked through doorways. Their energy fields have to adjust to physical barriers. A simple bullet, moving fast enough, might pass through before their shields can respond." General Baker stood up, his decision made. "Better to die on our feet than live on our knees. I vote we proceed with Operation Paper Tiger." One by one, the other leaders nodded. They had built Earth's defenses from nothing, survived world wars, and united their planet. They wouldn't let some alien council dictate their surrender. "Send word to all commands," Wilson ordered. "Begin visible decommissioning of weapons, but everything vital goes underground. And speed up production at the hidden facilities." As the meeting ended, Miller stayed behind, staring at the image of the council ships. Soon, those beautiful crystal vessels would learn a harsh lesson. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways, and humanity had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of throwing very fast, very deadly rocks. The clock was ticking. Earth had 30 days to play weak while preparing for the greatest deception in human history. The Nevada desert shimmered under the hot sun as council ships descended from the sky. Captain Miller stood with Major Wilson at the edge of the testing range, watching the crystalline vessels land with graceful precision. This was the day the Council had chosen to educate humanity on proper weapons technology. Ambassador Gray led a group of 10 Council members across the sand. Their environmental suits glittered, protecting them from Earth's atmosphere, which they found uncomfortably dense. Behind them floated several platforms carrying their demonstration equipment. "We appreciate Earth's cooperation in beginning weapons dismantlement," Gray announced, his translator making the words sound almost musical. "Today, we will show you the future of warfare, so you understand what you're gaining by joining us." Miller nodded politely, hiding his thoughts behind a professional smile. 20 miles away, deep underground, the latest batch of electromagnetic rail guns was being tested. But here, they would play the part of impressed primitives. The council members set up their demonstration field. Energy barriers sprang up, creating a controlled testing area. Their target drones, looking like floating silver spheres, took position at various distances. "Observe," Gray said, lifting what looked like a slim silver rod. "This is our standard infantry weapon." A beam of pure blue energy shot from the rod, striking the nearest drone. The target didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, its atoms scattered to the wind. "Complete molecular disruption," Gray explained proudly. "No messy explosions, no collateral damage. Civilized warfare." The other council members stepped forward, demonstrating increasingly powerful weapons. Beams of various colors filled the air. Some froze targets solid, others turned them to vapor. One weapon created a temporary black hole that swallowed its target whole. "And now," Gray said, "we will demonstrate our defensive capabilities." He pointed to a large drone. "This drone is protected by our standard military-grade shields. Feel free to use any weapons you haven't yet dismantled." Miller caught Wilson's eye. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. "We have a few small arms left," Miller said carefully. "Would you mind if we try something primitive?" The council members exchanged amused glances. "Please," Gray said, gesturing grandly. "Show us your best effort." Miller nodded to a soldier who brought forward an old M4 rifle. The council members actually laughed at the sight of it. The sound was like tinkling crystal. "You intend to attack an energy shield with chemical propellants in metal?" one of them asked incredulously. "Just a demonstration," Miller said humbly. The soldier took aim and fired a 3-round burst. As expected, the bullets splashed harmlessly against the drone's shield. "You see," Gray said, not bothering to hide his condescension. "Primitive weapons cannot hope to." "May we try one more?" Miller interrupted. "Something a little more sophisticated." Gray spread his 4 arms in a gesture of magnanimous permission. "By all means, though the result will be the same." Miller spoke into his radio. From behind a hill, a small tracked vehicle emerged. On top was mounted what looked like a simple metal tube. "This is what we call a coil gun," Miller explained. "It uses electromagnetic fields to accelerate a projectile. Very basic technology, by your standards." The council members looked bored. Gray sighed. "Proceed with your demonstration." The coil gun hummed quietly. There was no flash, no explosion, just a soft thump of displaced air. A moment later, the protected drone exploded in a shower of sparks and metal. The council members froze in shock. Gray's four eyes widened. Impossible, he whispered. The shield was at full power. Was it? Miller asked innocently. Perhaps we should try again. He nodded to the operator. Another asterisk thump asterisk, and another drone shattered. Stop, Gray commanded, his translator crackling with distortion. This must be a malfunction. Not at all, Miller said, his polite smile never wavering. Your shields are working perfectly. They're designed to stop energy weapons. But simple physics. He paused, letting the words sink in. Well, sometimes the old ways work best. The council members huddled together, speaking rapidly in their own language. Their confidence had visibly cracked. We will need to review this demonstration, Gray said stiffly. Perhaps your weapons are not quite as primitive as we thought. As the council members hurried back to their ships, Wilson stepped closer to Miller. Think they got the message. Miller watched the crystalline ships lift off, their beautiful hulls gleaming in the sun. Oh yes, he said quietly. I think they're starting to understand that humanity might have a few surprises left. Above them, the council ships vanished into the sky, carrying with them the first seeds of doubt about their technological superiority. The real question was, what would they do with this new knowledge? 1 week after the Nevada demonstration, Admiral Smith stood in Earth's most secure testing facility, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Through the reinforced windows of the observation room, he watched as teams of engineers prepared for the most important weapons test in human history. The Council has requested this demonstration, he informed the gathered military leaders. They want to prove their latest shield technology can stop any kinetic weapon. They're bringing their best defensive systems. The underground chamber was massive, carved from solid rock. At one end stood the array of human weapons, everything from traditional artillery to the latest prototype railguns. At the other end, Council engineers were setting up their most advanced shield generators. Ambassador Gray entered the observation room with 5 senior Council scientists. Their earlier mockery had been replaced by tense concentration. The Nevada incident had shaken their confidence. We have analyzed the previous test, Gray announced. It was incomplete. Today, we will show you our full defensive capabilities. Smith nodded respectfully. Of course. Shall we begin with something basic? The first test used a standard tank cannon. The Council shield flickered brilliantly, stopping the shell with ease. The alien scientists nodded in satisfaction. You see, one scientist said, we have compensated for simple kinetic impacts. Let's try something faster, Smith suggested. He gave a signal, and the operators activated the first electromagnetic railgun. The projectile moved so fast, it was invisible to the naked eye. The shield flared bright enough to blind anyone not wearing protective glasses. When the light faded, the shield was still standing, but the generators were smoking. Interesting, Gray muttered, all 4 eyes fixed on the readings, but still within acceptable parameters. Then perhaps we should test those parameters, Smith said quietly. He pressed a button on his console. Test 3. At the firing end of the range, panels slid open in the floor. A massive device rose into position. Even the council members fell silent at the sight of it. This, Smith explained, is what we call a heavy coil gun. It fires a tungsten rod at roughly 50 kilometers per second. Gray's translator crackled as he spoke rapidly. That's impossible. The power requirements alone. Fire when ready, Smith interrupted. The coilgun's capacitors discharged with a sound like thunder. The tungsten rod crossed the distance almost instantly. The council shield didn't just fail, it shattered. The rod continued through the armored backstop, burying itself half a mile into the mountain. Alarms blared as emergency systems activated. Through the chaos, Smith watched the council members' reactions. Their confidence had finally broken completely. Stop the tests, Gray demanded. This level of kinetic weapon. We're not finished, Smith said calmly. We have several more systems to demonstrate. No. Gray's voice shook. No more demonstrations. You don't understand. These weapons, they're too powerful. Our ships, our defenses, they're not designed for this kind of warfare. Smith leaned forward. That's exactly what we want you to understand, Ambassador. Humanity hasn't been collecting outdated weapons. We've been perfecting them. The mountain rumbled as engineers prepared the next test. Gray and his scientists huddled together, their translators creating a cacophony of worried voices. We must report this to the Council, Gray finally said. Our assessment of Earth's military capability was incorrect. Was it? Smith asked. Or did you just assume that different meant primitive? Before Gray could answer, an aide rushed into the observation room. His face was pale. Sir, we're getting reports. Council separatists are attacking the Mars colony. The room fell silent. Smith turned to Gray, his expression hardening. It seems some of your people want to test our primitive weapons in actual combat. Gray's environmental suit seemed to shrink around him. This is unsanctioned. The separatists are not acting under Council authority. It doesn't matter, Smith said, reaching for his comm unit. They're about to learn what humanity can do when pushed. He activated the channel. This is Admiral Smith. Implement Case Thunder. I repeat, implement Case Thunder. As the command center burst into activity, Smith looked at the still smoking shield generators. The Council had wanted a weapons test. Now they were going to get a real demonstration, not in a control facility, but in open combat. Humanity's primitive weapons were about to show the galaxy exactly what they could do. The Mars Defense Command Center shook as another separatist ship passed overhead. Through the reinforced windows, Lieutenant Rogers watched 3 crystalline vessels descending toward the main colony dome. Their energy weapons had already destroyed several smaller outposts, their crews believing their shields made them invulnerable. They were about to learn differently. All batteries, execute pattern Delta, Rogers ordered into his comm. Around the colony, hidden panels slid open in the Martian soil. What looked like simple communication arrays turned, revealing their true nature. The first separatist ship fired, its energy beams splashing harmlessly against the colony's shields, copied from Council designs but modified by human engineers. The alien vessel drew closer, preparing for another shot. It never got the chance. 20 electromagnetic railguns fired simultaneously. Simple metal slugs, accelerated to incredible speeds, tore through the ship's energy shields like they weren't even there. The beautiful crystal vessel shattered into a million glittering pieces. By the stars. The separatist commander's transmission crackled across all frequencies. How is this possible? Rogers keyed his comm. This is Mars Defense Command to separatist forces. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. The remaining ships began to turn, but it was too late. The second wave of railgun fire caught them mid-maneuver. One ship exploded instantly. The other spun away, trailing crystalline fragments, before breaking apart in Mars' thin atmosphere. Back on Earth, in the Strategic Command Center, Admiral Smith watched the battle feeds with grim satisfaction. Similar scenes were playing out across human space. The separatists had expected an easy victory over primitive humans. Instead, their mighty fleet was being torn apart by simple kinetic weapons. Sir, a communications officer called out. We're receiving transmissions from other Council worlds. The separatists are retreating everywhere. But there's something else. Smith turned to the main screen. Reports were flooding in from across Council space. Other species, seeing the effectiveness of human weapons, were beginning to question the Council's military doctrine. Some were already requesting Earth's primitive weapon designs. Ambassador Gray stood in the corner, his environmental suit seeming to droop with his mood. You don't understand what you've done, he said quietly. 10,000 years of military doctrine, our entire defense strategy, is obsolete, Smith finished, just like you thought our weapons were. The strategic display showed more battles ending across the solar system. The Separatist fleet, which had arrived with such confidence, was retreating in chaos. Their beautiful ships, designed to fight energy weapon battles at long range, had no defense against humanity's primitive arsenal. "Incoming transmission from the council chamber," the comm officer announced. The main screen lit up with the image of the council's high commander. The alien leader's 4 eyes were wide with what looked like fear. "This is an official request," the commander said, translator struggling with the strain in his voice. "Earth's defensive capabilities have proven significant. We request immediate military assistance against the Separatist forces." The room fell silent. In less than a day, humanity had gone from being seen as primitive savages to being asked for help by the galaxy's ruling body. Smith looked at Gray. "Your people laughed at our weapons," he said calmly. "Now you want our help using them." Gray's translator crackled. "We were wrong. Terribly wrong. In our arrogance, we forgot the simple laws of physics. While we pursued energy weapons to their ultimate form, you perfected the basic forces of motion." Smith turned back to the screen. "Earth will assist the Council," he said firmly. "But from now on, we expect to be treated as equals. No more demands for disarmament. No more mockery of our technology." The High Commander nodded quickly. "Agreed. We will need time to rebuild our military doctrine, to learn from Earth's expertise." As the transmission ended, Roger's voice came through from Mars. "All Separatist forces have retreated from the solar system, sir. Our casualties are minimal. Their shields never stood a chance against our weapons." Smith looked out the window at the setting sun. In one day, humanity had gone from being the galaxy's primitives to its protectors, all because they'd remembered something the Council had forgotten. Sometimes the simplest solution was the best solution, and humanity had spent millennia making simple solutions very, very deadly indeed. 1 month after the Separatist attack, Lieutenant Rogers stood in the massive Council Military Academy on the alien world of Prime. Before him, representatives from 30 different species watched intently as he assembled a simple railgun on the demonstration table. "The principle is basic," he explained, his words translated into multiple languages. "Electromagnetic acceleration of a metal projectile. No exotic energy fields, no molecular disruptors, just pure kinetic force." In the audience, former Council weapon masters sat next to human engineers, taking detailed notes. The mighty Council fleet, once proud of its energy-only doctrine, was undergoing the biggest transformation in its history. At a nearby testing range, Captain Miller watched as alien ships practiced evasive maneuvers against kinetic weapons. Their beautiful crystal vessels were being retrofitted with physical armor, something they hadn't needed in thousands of years. "The integration is proceeding faster than expected," Ambassador Gray said, approaching Miller. The alien diplomat had become one of Earth's strongest supporters in the Council. 6 species have already begun mass-producing human-designed weapons. Miller nodded, watching an alien gunner learn to lead their target, a basic skill long forgotten in energy weapon combat. "They're adapting well, though I notice some still prefer their energy weapons." "Of course," Gray's translator hummed with amusement. "We're not abandoning 10,000 years of development, but combining our technologies." He gestured to a nearby weapon test. A new hybrid weapon, designed by joint human-alien teams, fired a magnetically accelerated projectile surrounded by an energy field. It carried the unstoppable kinetic force of human weapons with the precision and control of Council energy technology. "Progress report from the frontier," a young officer reported, hurrying up to them. 3 more Separatist fleets have surrendered. They're requesting upgrade packages for their defensive systems. The Separatist forces, once confident in their energy shields, were crumbling. Those who didn't surrender were quickly learning why humanity's primitive weapons had endured for so long. In orbit above them, the first of the new joint-designed warships moved through space. Its hull combined the Council's crystal technology with traditional human armor plating. Energy shields worked alongside kinetic deflectors. It was a perfect blend of both civilizations' military philosophy. The Council Security Committee is convening, Gray announced. They're voting on Earth's permanent membership today. Miller raised an eyebrow. Already? That's faster than expected. The other races insisted. Gray's translator conveyed his ironic tone. They feel safer with humans helping guide our military development. After all, you prove that newer doesn't always mean better. They walked to the Academy's main hall, where a huge screen showed the committee meeting. The vote was unanimous. Earth, once mocked for its primitive weapons, would now help lead the Council's combined forces. There's something else, Gray said as they watched the celebration. The Science Division has been studying your historical records. They're particularly interested in something called guerrilla warfare and asymmetric combat. Miller couldn't help but laugh. First, we teach them about kinetic weapons. Now they want to learn about unconventional tactics. The Council is changing faster than I expected. We had grown complacent, Gray admitted, convinced that our path was the only path. Humanity showed us that innovation comes in many forms. In the training yard below, Rogers was now teaching alien troops how to maintain their new weapons. The Council species, used to self-maintaining energy weapons, were learning the value of understanding their equipment's basic mechanics. Commander of the Third Fleet is requesting more human instructors, an aide reported. They're especially interested in learning about something called carrier operations and fighter combat. Miller shook his head in amazement. In just 1 month, humanity had gone from being seen as primitive savages to becoming the galaxy's premier military instructors, all because they'd stuck to what worked, even when advanced aliens had laughed at them. The Separatists are asking for peace talks, Gray said suddenly. They've seen enough of human weapons in action. They want to rejoin the Council, under the new doctrine. Miller looked out at the training grounds, where humans and aliens worked side by side, each learning from the other. Funny how things turn out, he said. You came to teach us about proper weapons. And instead, you taught us about proper wisdom, Gray finished. Sometimes the old ways are best, especially when combined with new ideas. Together, they watched as the future of galactic warfare took shape. A future where humanity's primitive expertise would help guide the Council into a new age of military understanding. 5 years after the Separatist crisis, the Grand Council chamber looked very different from before. Physical armor now reinforced its crystal walls, and hybrid weapon systems guarded its approaches. At the central podium, Captain Miller, now General Miller, addressed the gathered representatives of a changed galaxy. The Joint Defense Initiative has exceeded all expectations, he announced, gesturing to the holographic display showing military vessels across Council space. Every member species has now successfully integrated both kinetic and energy weapon systems. The chamber, once filled with beings who had laughed at primitive weapons, now nodded in approval. Among them sat Admiral Smith and Lieutenant Rogers, Earth's representatives on the Council's military command. Ambassador Gray, now the Council's Chief of Security, stepped forward. The latest statistics are remarkable, he said, his translator perfectly tuned after years of working with humans. Overall fleet effectiveness has increased by 300%, not by abandoning energy weapons, but by combining them with human expertise. The display showed their newest vessels, sleek ships that married Council crystal technology with Earth's practical combat designs. Energy weapons worked alongside railguns, shields layered with physical armor, the best of both worlds. More importantly, Rogers added, standing at his turn, we've seen no major conflicts in the past 3 years. The combination of technologies has created a true defensive balance. In the shipyards visible through the chamber's windows, vessels of all species underwent upgrades. The once rigid military doctrine of the Council had given way to a flexible approach that valued both innovation and tradition. We have a saying on Earth, Smith said, addressing the chamber. Pride goes before a fall. 5 years ago, the Council's pride in energy weapons nearly led to disaster. But today, we stand stronger because we learned to respect each other's strengths. The display shifted to show the new military academy on Mars, where beings from across the galaxy trained together. Energy weapon experts taught alongside human ballistic specialists. Council shield technicians worked with Earth engineers to create new defensive systems. The Separatists have been fully reintegrated, Gray reported. Their ships now carry the same hybrid weapons as ours. Many have admitted that seeing their superior shields fail against simple kinetic weapons changed their entire worldview. Miller activated the final display, a comparison of old and new combat statistics. The Council once laughed at human guns, he said, his voice carrying across the chamber. Now those same principles help protect every world in Council space. A young alien cadet approached the podium, carrying a ceremonial weapon that symbolized the new era. It looked like an ancient Earth rifle, but its mechanisms combined physical projectiles with energy fields, a perfect symbol of their new cooperation. But our greatest achievement, Miller continued, isn't military at all. It's the lesson we all learned. No species has all the answers. Progress doesn't mean abandoning the past. Sometimes the old ways and new ideas work best together. The chamber erupted in agreement. Species that once looked down on primitive humanity now sought their advice on everything from tactical doctrine to ship design. Earth's outdated military experience had become one of its most valuable exports. The Council formally recognizes the 5th anniversary of the Human Council Defensive Alliance, Gray announced, and proposes a new tradition that every Council ship carry both energy and kinetic weapons, as a reminder that wisdom can come from any source. As the chamber approved the proposal, Miller looked out at the stars visible through the crystal walls. Somewhere out there, the galaxy's first joint human-alien patrol fleet was testing new weapons and tactics. Every ship carried Council energy weapons alongside human railguns. Every crew included beings who had learned to respect different approaches to solving problems. Humanity thanks the Council, Miller said formally, concluding the session. Not for accepting our weapons, but for learning with us. Together, we're stronger than either of us could be alone. The chamber filled with approval as the session ended. Outside, the sunset painted the crystal and armor of the Council buildings in gold. It shone on energy weapons and kinetic guns alike, on alien ships and human vessels, on the symbols of a galaxy that had learned an important lesson. True strength comes not from claiming superiority, but from being willing to learn from others, even those you once thought primitive. The Council had laughed at human guns. Now those guns, together with Council technology, helped keep the peace across the stars. It was a better ending than anyone could have imagined.